my name is Wynne and welcome back to my channel. Today we have my shadow with me. My fringe is having a party. I need to get it cut. And my dad is composing just downstairs, so apologies if you can hear any of that. It is possible that you won't, and I'm just whispering onto myself about nothing because before, several times in the past, I have said, oh, sorry about that, and then editing it I've not been able to hear anything. So maybe I should just not say anything. Oh well. Let's get on with the video today. I feel the need to clarify lots of things because otherwise I get supremely anxious. In today's video we are going to be looking at the house that dripped blood because this is the next video in my series in which I discuss Peter Cushing's films with the studio that dripped blood, AbeBooks, and the portmanteau we're going to be looking at today is the house that dripped blood, and this one is probably my favourite in the series, as I have made, as if I haven't made it already very clear indeed. It is a wonderful series and there is not a bad film, but I just particularly love this one. Apologies that it's a little bit jiggly. The disc is a tad loose inside, but it's all good. This is an Anchor Bay DVD. I spoke in my Torture Garden video about Anchor Bay, I believe, and yeah, I really love this one. I bought this online off Kex, which most people call CEX or even Sex, and I think I paid about £20 for it. There is the back, and this is the inside. It's actually got the names of the little episodes, so little segments, so I can actually tell you what they're called this time. Why is this my favourite? I'm not sure, honestly. I just think it's probably one of the most grim, in my opinion. Perhaps in a slightly subtle way, in that it's called The House That Dripped Blood, but there's no actual blood in the film. I get quite strong House of the Long Shadows vibes, which is, I believe, the only film in which we see Christopher Lee, Vincent Price and Peter Cushing all in one film together. It's excellent, you really should watch it if you haven't already. So, House That Dripped Blood. I believe my dad mentioned in one of the videos that we did together that he once saw this when he was younger and it terrified him, but he couldn't remember the name of it. So every time an AbeBooks portmanteau film came on, he was scared something silly. I remember I watched this when we were staying in a little boarding house, little tiny hotel-esque place for a couple of days, and my dad and I watched this on my mum's Kindle, and I was also quite scared of the first story, which was the one that frightened him too. The first story, I believe, is called Method for Murder, and it is, and yes, there will be spoilers in this one because this one is my favourite, so there's going to be a lot of detail. Not that the other ones are somehow less detailed, but I believe, yeah, there are a couple of stories in this series that I chose not to give spoilers for because I think that the twist is amazing, and I'm not going to tell you every single twist in this film because then I suppose it dulls some of the suspense a little. So yes, the first story, Method for Murder, frightened both my dad and I the first time we saw it. It is about a writer who, I can't remember whether he rents or buys this house, but he buys this creepy house which is said to have a number of unfortunate happenings in it. Very kind of shining, like The Shining, that is, because it is the house that poisons the people in it, or at least brings out the existing poison. This author is writing about a murderer, and he keeps seeing this murderer around the house, so that's funky. I'm not going to tell you the twist, but yes, we really like that one, and as always, it is a good place to start with this portmanteau. The second one, I am actually going to keep this open so I can tell you, because it has been a while since I've seen this, but of course I will see it again very soon, not least because every so often I have a bit of time away from watching Cushing films, because I enjoy kind of binging his films, kind of really being in the zone, in the moment. Every so often I'll have some time off and then I will rewatch the Centenary tribute, get a little bit sad because he's no longer with us, and because of how much losing his wife Helen affected him. And you know, I've read his autobiography, mentioned that before, and he speaks with such emotion between those pages, and it's really special. So I get a little bit sad, and then I realise, I remember how much I do in fact love him as an actor, as an artist, let's say, because I do believe acting is an art within itself, and he did actually do painting, speaking of art, just as a little side note, and then I go off on a Cushing binge, and this film will probably be coming out again. You almost forget how wonderful the film is sometimes until you talk about it again, or until you watch it, and then you think, why on earth why have I not watched this in such a long time? Okay, next we have, so this is just 4 stories, like Torture Garden, because the little framing story is a little bit longer. There's a little almost epilogue at the end, in which one of the characters, and I'm not going to tell you which, meets this detective who is speaking to the owner, who is the estate agent, about the various goings on in the house. The second story is called Waxworks. I will link the video released by the Peter Cushing Appreciation Society YouTube channel of just that segment. It is a Cushing one, and this one is brilliant. I don't have a problem with dolls, I don't have a problem with waxworks, they don't particularly freak me out, but the underlying sense of menace in this segment is really well done. I don't know if it's the green light or the lens zooming in on people's faces, or indeed the disturbingly, hauntingly beautiful waxwork figure Salome that Cushing's friend and many before him fall for. This one, I think, is somewhat upsetting, not just because it's Cushing, but because the end that he meets is not entirely justified, I will say that. But I do really like this one. There is a little clip where he puts on a little bit of classical music, and I can't remember the tune, but I will find it out. I'm so sorry, it's been a while. In which he is haunted by this photograph of this woman that he and his friend both knew, whose visage is uncannily represented within this waxwork model. Okay, segment 3, we have Sweets to the Sweet, which is the Christopher Lee segment, because for some reason I forgot to mention that this is a Cushley one, and the first Cushley one since the first Amicus Portmanteau, Dr. Tara's House of Horrors. This one is in 1971 and Torture Garden is in 1976, so it's about 6 years at this point since the first portmanteau, Dr. Tara's House of Horrors, came out in 1965. Sweets to the Sweet sees Christopher Lee as a widower, moving to the house with his little daughter Jane, I believe. Played by Chloe Franks, if I'm correct, who was also in The Uncanny, which is a late 70s film with Cushing, another portmanteau, but not an amicus ones, about how cats are going to one day take over the world. And little Jane is homeschooled. So Christopher Lee chooses to hire a new tutor for her, seeing as they've moved to a new area. I can't remember the name of the woman. She is also featured in another portmanteau from Beyond the Grave, which is the last in the Amicus series, and indeed the last that I will be covering in this little series that I'm doing. She plays a wife whose husband is visited by a rather annoying demonic spirit. But in this story, as I said, she plays a tutor, a nanny to this little girl who is deathly afraid of fire and rather disconnected from people her age and the, I suppose, ordinary innocent childhood experience. Her dad is very selective and strict about the things that he lets her play with. She is not allowed to play with dolls because it turns out that her mother was involved in witchcraft. This story has a particularly grim ending when the girl innocently gets her revenge. Okay, we have the final story, which is the kind of comic relief story, and it is Sean Pertwee playing a hammy actor starring in a vampiric picture. There is a point where he jokes that the horror films being produced now, and at the time of course that was a little joke, at the expense of the Hammer Draculas that had been released initially in the late 60s and were continuing to be released in the 70s and the 60s before that. This little joke is made when Sean Pertwee's character insists that he prefers the original Universal pictures starring Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff. So there's a little thing there just for the fans in that little segment. Sean Pertwee goes to an antique shop to get a cloak for his role because he is not at all impressed with the one that the production company provide for him. But it turns out that this cloak has powers, and he witnesses somewhat of a transformation. And so does his co-star Ingrid Pitt, who of course is most famous for playing Carmilla in The Vampire Lovers. She also appeared in Countess Dracula, which stars Nigel Green. There aren't many films in my collection that have Nigel Green in them because unfortunately he died quite young, but I do love a bit of Nigel Green. He's not in this one, I don't want to confuse things, but he has starred with Ingrid Pitt and indeed Cushing and Lee. So, as I said, at the end of this segment there is a little epilogue, a little extended bit, which I don't know if it necessarily is longer than the conclusion to the framing stories in the other two films. It just feels like it is though. And yes, that one is very cleverly done because I will say, I'm not going to give the entire thing away, but there is conveniently a crypt in the cellar at the bottom of the house. I'm trying to think, I'll have to put some actors' names up on the screen because I can't remember the names of them all. But I do know that there is a particular actor who stars in the last segment as this slightly crusty geezer selling the cape to, I've been calling him Sean Pertwee. Is John Pertwee? Sean's his son. I'm so sorry. who stars as the crusty guy selling Mr. Pertwee this cloak. I want to say that it's Jeffrey Balden, but I know that I don't think it is. I don't know why. It is possible it is, and it's possible I have got that most heinously wrong, and for that, either way, I do apologise, because even if I'm right, I am confusing things. Now, as I said, this one does not have a drop of blood in it, but it just has an atmosphere to it that I don't think the others quite have. These films are definitely solo pieces, like real tour de forces in their own right, and I think each one has a slightly different flavour to it, and this one is my favourite. I know that this video is a lot shorter than I normally do. I promise I didn't mean to do that. That's just how it's ended up. You see, I am confusing myself a little bit because I've had to film this in 2 clips because my dad came up the stairs and I hadn't told him that I was filming, and I didn't want him to suddenly yell something random whilst I was on camera. But I have a feeling that this one is a lot shorter than my normal videos. I hope you don't mind that. As I've said, it's nothing, I'm not trying to hurry this along. It just turns out that this one has been an awful lot easier to summarise, and I've perhaps felt less dissociated and therefore less waffly. Next week I will be doing, I can't remember which way around it is, either Asylum or Tales from the Crypt. They were both released in 1972. And yeah, as I said, I'm not entirely sure which one came first. I will put it up on the screen, however, so it won't be so much of a surprise next week. If you've been watching my channel page, you will know that I just released a quick little overview of my DVD collection, and I would like to do another one of those for my TV DVD collection. I have 2 massive clear boxes and indeed a couple of DVDs that I've left downstairs. I don't know if I'll do that next week. We'll just have to see kind of how I feel. I've also just remembered there is a family meetup happening next Saturday, so I'm not really sure when I'll get around to filming, but yeah, we shall have to see. There will be a video up at some point. I've surprised myself because the last few weeks, because of how tired I've been, I've really struggled to get things out on the Sunday and to get all the editing done, but I'm feeling quite upbeat today, so I think that task will prove to be an awful lot easier today. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you at some point, hopefully Sunday next week. Take care everybody, bye.